think business performance starts always from the top. So it's all about the leader. And crucial for that is the character of the leader. What I've realized is that leaders who want to have high performance or build a big business all starts from having an ego. Okay, having an ego. Right. The ego drives ambition. So if you have a big ambition, it comes from the ego. Okay, so actually what I'm actually telling many is that ego is very healthy. Right. But be careful that ego does not become arrogance, because arrogance means you're not humble, you don't listen.
Hello and welcome to episode 26 of The Exponential Show. Today it is a pleasure of mine to introduce Kari Harteva. Kari, thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. For those of you who don't know Kari, he is a partner at August Leadership, and he has had, in my opinion, a stellar career in the corporate and leadership space. So I'm looking forward to having a conversation with you today, Kari.
Thank you very much for inviting me today.
The pleasure is all mine. So, Kari, before we get started, I need to shout out Kun Inc. and her team at No More. They've very kindly sent a box of low sugar, dairy free and low calorie gelatos for you. And they are available on Lineman and Grab. And for those who are looking for a mass indulgence, they also do catering and events as well. So make sure to check them out in our description and comments below. Thank you again, Kuning, for sending this through. Now, Kari, let's start with the question that we ask all our guests, is your origin story. So, getting to know you earlier, I know that you've had a storied career in the building material space, in consumer electronics, in power tools, and you've in the last few years, you've specialized in building high-performance teams across these organizations. So can you walk us through some of the key milestones that you've had in your journey so far, and what led you to being a partner at August Leadership?
Very happy to do so. I was born and raised in Thailand. My parents are from Finland. I have Thai nationality. And then since very early on in my life, I've worked with multinationals in order to, let's say, grow their business in Thailand, or I've also held regional responsibilities in Asia Pacific, covering from Japan to New Zealand, Philippines to India. Very early in my career, I worked together with a managing director who was recruited to join companies to do business transformations. This was very interesting because I've learned a lot. When you do transformations, you learn a lot in terms of what works well, what doesn't work well, right. And that's been a huge inspiration to me. And then you have a high satisfaction of turning a non-performing business to a high-performance business. So I followed this managing director for quite a while to let's say, to learn a lot. It's been very engaging, a lot of fun. I go home every day and I feel that I had a huge impact in the business, so I felt a lot of value with that. And then later on in my career, I had aspirations that I wanted to be the leader of the business. So from that point in time, I aspired to become a managing director. And I had the fortune of becoming a managing director. And actually, I was recruited to do business transformations myself.
I see.
So I've done business transformations for 4 companies, different companies, turning from non-performing businesses to very high-performance businesses. Right. And when I say about high performance, it means, in essence, basically doubling the business in 3 years.
Wow.
Okay, so this hugely motivational to see, non-performing business to become very, high performance, very successful, and then continuing to see that success when I've left the business and joined other businesses. So that has been a really interesting part of my career. August Leadership approached me 2 years ago because they were looking for a partner based in Thailand.
Right.
August Leadership is a global high-end executive search company, also doing leadership advisory.
Right.
And they needed a partner who had been a managing director of businesses. Because if one has been a managing director in a business, one obviously has the experience of recruiting, training, developing leaders. And therefore, when I have a client today, I can really provide real good services, identifying the right people into the business, because I've had the personal experience of managing teams, building teams, recruiting people, and therefore I know what type of characters, persons, capabilities are needed to do high performance. Therefore, August Leadership approached me from this side because I then have the full experience on helping my clients to identify the right resources in order so that they can grow their business, in terms of high performance as well.
Makes a lot of sense. And you having been there, done that, it kind of gives you a more well-rounded perspective as opposed to maybe somebody who's been in recruitment all their life, so
Yes.
being in the trenches.
Yes.
So it's fascinating to know about that journey. But you've made the whole business transformation sound easy in your description, but I'm sure there were lots of variables to manage and lots of moving parts. But especially around change management and how teams can be very resistant to it. So there's a whole conversation we can go into. But what I am more interested for today's context is your thoughts on leadership, because when we first met, that was one of the topics that you talked most passionately about if you're trying to build a high performance organization, it almost always starts at the top. So can you tell me more about some of the examples that you maybe talked off camera as well, and how you've seen those leaders make or break a business? And if I may just add a special request, is a lot of our audience are small, medium-sized businesses. So if there are any learnings from your experience that are transferable to those businesses, I'd love to know your opinion on that as well.
Yeah, I think business performance starts always from the top. So it's all about the leader. And crucial for that is the character of the leader. I've observed when I look at businesses, let's say starting up at the same time and looking at these businesses perform over several years. And when you look at that, certain businesses starting at the same time and over a period of years have a completely different size, meaning huge difference in revenue, huge difference in gross profitability, huge difference in net profitability. It's all been about the character.
Right.
What I've realized is that leaders who want to have high performance or build a big business all starts from having an ego. Okay, having an ego. Right. The ego drives ambition. So if you have a big ambition, it comes from the ego. Okay, so actually what I'm actually telling many is that ego is very healthy.
Right.
But be careful that ego does not become arrogance, because arrogance means you're not humble, you don't listen.
Right.
Okay, so having a high ego is crucial to grow businesses. And this is the same for startups. This is the same for, let's say, semi-mature business and mature business, having this high ego. I know one particular company which started, let's say, 60 years ago. Now, its revenue compared to its peers, which started 60 years ago as well, the revenue is 6 times bigger. Okay, and net profitability is completely different. So I think the key lesson is having this ego. This ego means that the owner of this particular business says, I want to be number one. Okay, he has big ambitions. I want to be number one. He can't sleep at night if he's not number one. Okay, so he's number one in every product category. He's number one in every product channel. So I think this is crucial, having this big thinking, big dreams.
Right.
There's a saying that if you think big, you become big. If you think medium, you're medium. If you think small, you're small. Right. So I think it's all about this ego, this ambition is part of it. And some other characteristics that I observe from leaders is they need to have a high IQ, very strong EQ,
right,
and very strong TQ. TQ here, I mean trust quotient. Okay, so you need to be somebody that your team trusts. You need to be somebody that your customers trust, right, and all your stakeholders to trust in order to take this business forward. Another characteristic that I see from people who can drive businesses, they have high energy, high passion, and extremely impatient.
Right.
Okay, so which means that it drives action. They take actions quicker, faster. You can win your competition if you think faster, make decisions faster. Because the challenge at the moment is that we see very low single-digit GDP growth. Right. We see certain industries are not growing. So it's all about now taking market share. So who eats who?
Right.
The faster you can bite is that you eat somebody first. Okay, so quick decision making is crucial for growth. And I think this is applicable for all industries, whether it's an SME, medium size or big size corporation. This agility, this fast decision making process. And teams are crucial.
Right.
Because the leader cannot do everything himself. There needs to be an execution level. So identifying, structuring the right team is really crucial.
It makes a lot of sense. And when I hear you say it, it sounds very obvious, but usually things like ego and things like impatient have a negative connotation to them. But if used in the right way and not mistaking ego for arrogance, like you mentioned, if we can strike that balance, I see how. And while you were talking about it, I was just thinking of the leaders that we admire in my generation. So the Steve Jobs and Elon Musks of the world, they're all they're very famous for having a very big ego and for being impatient and kind of disrupting things in their own unique, slightly eccentric ways as well. But it's a good perspective to have. Now, you briefly mentioned teams at the end of your last answer. So can we maybe dive deeper into that? And the last time we met, you gave me a masterclass on A, B, and C level players and why it's important to stick with A-level players. So can you let us know just the distinction between the three and how you can attract and retain A-level players in your team?
Yeah. I think the second element after the characteristics of a leader, I think it's about the team.
Right.
You cannot perform a business without the right team.
Right.
And what I do is I segregate people into three categories. It's A players, B players, and C players. Actually, this is the same segregation that Jack Welch used. He was one of the most famous CEOs of GE.
Right.
A players are high performers, passionate, over-deliver, growth mindset people. It not necessarily mean that A players are these big names. It's about the characteristics of them. Okay, so high IQ, strong EQ, strong TQ, overperforming, very passionate, can do. This is the A player type.
Right.
The B players are consistent, hardworking, mainly basically delivering results. But not these overperforming, high energy types. This is the B players.
Right.
The C players are non-performers, non-growth mindsets, cannot do, not a can do, but cannot do mindset.
Right.
Okay, so what I do when I join organizations, I put people into buckets, A players, B players, and C players. And key for high performance is to have a very high portion of A players. Okay. These are your high players. If you look at team sports like soccer, where you have 11 players, you have the forwards, the wingers, the midfields, the defenders, and the goalkeepers. The question is, for this team to consistently win every match, which player should not be an A player? The answer is none.
Right.
Okay. You may have a couple of B players, but that's a risk. But for high performing teams, you cannot have a single person who's a C player.
Makes sense.
And if you look at sports, it's interesting that even on a certain day, maybe an A player is not really performing well. What does the manager of the team do? He takes him off and replaces him with a substitute who hopefully is an A player on that day, so the team can perform. So this is crucial for business. Crucial for business is especially on the management team, not to have a single individual who's a C player, okay, but to have A players and B players. Now, what do the A players look for? Actually, for the A players, if there's a high number of C players, it demotivates them, it disengages them. Because a high performer is being treated equally like a low performer. So this disengages. So one of the best ways to keep the A players engaged is to have 0 C players on the team, okay, in order to engage them. And what do the A players want? Basically, our role as a leader of an A player is to be the cheerleader. Is to just give him simple directions, this is the goal, and they're competent, they're capable, and empower them to do their job because they know how to do the job. They're performing very well and reward them very well.
Right.
Okay. Now, a key element to how to retain A players is that the leader should have a high IQ, EQ, and TQ as well.
Right.
Okay, because the A player is looking to talk to a leader and to learn from a leader.
Right.
Okay, so the leader has to be a person where this A player feels that he can learn something, he can get experience, get ideas, and further develop. For the B players, what I do is I spend most of my time coaching and mentoring in order to develop them into an A player. Okay. However, self-development is very personal, meaning it's depending on internal motivations in order to really do the change. And just to let's say further elaborate is that there's a difference between coaching and mentoring, which sometimes is not that clear. Coaching is a process where the coach uses questions only, and to help the coachee to arrive with answers. Okay, because the belief is the coachee actually has a lot of knowledge, but maybe there's a blind side, or maybe there's, like, haven't thought it, in a 360-degree way, so haven't found the answers yet.
Nice.
So the coach helps the coachee to arrive with the answers. Mentorship is different. Mentorship is where the mentor gives ideas, gives options, talks about the pros and cons, and may even advise that option 2 is probably better because of this. And then the person who are mentoring will then, make a decision that, okay, that's a good idea. I will follow through. I'll go through with that idea. So there's a difference. In the sports world, we call the tennis coach.
Right.
Actually, in the business world, that's tennis mentor.
Right.
There's a difference. Okay, so, but anyhow, to develop the Bs, the P players, is all about coaching, mentoring, and building them to hopefully become an A player. So this is crucial for the team, a high portion of A players.
Makes a lot of sense, and that's something that since you last spoke, I've reflected upon within the team that I work on as well. So I appreciate that perspective and the clarity of thought that brings for a leader. Because if you're not looking at that framework, you're just looking at several individuals and seeing how you tackle each one of them. But having that framework helps you categorize people, and then you can perhaps work within groups and see which ones are the ones who are A players and, like you said, need just cheerleading and direction, whereas who are the C players who need to need to leave, versus who are the B players who can be coached and mentored into hopefully A players.
And just to answer your other portion of the question is, so how do you hire? How do you hire A players? You can't identify A players through reading a CV.
Right.
It's dry. So identifying A players is all about this personal interview. And it's not about going through the CV. Right. It's about interacting, it's about checking the IQ, it's checking the EQ, it's checking the passion, it's checking the energy level. Right. This characteristics you can only identify by having this personal discussion.
Absolutely.
Now, how do you attract an A player to join you? Well, if you're highly ambitious, you have a high ambition for your business, I think that attracts A players.
Right.
For instance, you tell an A player that my business is now number 5 in the industry, but I want to become number 1, and let's join on the path together to create this business to become number 1 in the market. This is very engaging. The A player would love to work for a company which either is number 1 today or will become number 1 because of the energy of the leader or the character of the leader. So that's the way to attract A players.
Makes sense. Now, sort of piggybacking on that answer, you mentioned on one hand just intrinsic characteristics of both leaders and A players and some commonalities they have in terms of just the values that they should have and the EQ, IQ, and TQ that you mentioned. But on the other end, you mentioned mentoring and coaching. So how do you see a balance between the nature versus nurture in your experience, specifically in your current role where you're teaching, not teaching, but mentoring and coaching leaders? And what difference do you feel somebody like yourself can make in a career or performance of those individuals and those teams?
Yeah, I think what to use, meaning either between coaching and mentoring, is situational.
Right.
Okay. If you're doing a business transformation where you need high speed, there's a short period of time.
Right.
I think probably mentorship is a more useful tool
I see.
in order to use. You know, just to compare is on an airplane flight. You know, in many flights, it's the co-pilot who will be flying on that flight because this is like a training to develop into becoming a captain. Now, if that plane has some issues and is about to nosedive, and there's co-pilot flying, the captain probably won't be saying, "What do you think?
Right.
What are the options?"
Right.
Because there's no time for that.
Right.
Okay, so it'll be probably more direct input in terms of what needs to be done and when and how. So I think it's situational in terms of when to use coaching, when to use mentoring.
Right.
Okay, if there's a longer time frame, there's not so much urgency, then using coaching is also a useful tool to develop the individual. So I think it's situational in terms of when to use and what to use. But what I've realized also is that when I've hired people from organizations, I feel that what's missing always is that the leaders have not talked to their teams in a wider perspective. What I mean to say is that I feel that most of the discussions are job related.
Right.
There's this task that I'd like to delegate to you and talk about deliverables and all that. But I feel that there should be a broader discussion with management teams, meaning talking about strategy, talking about business, talking about people. In order for people to move from becoming I individuals, I individuals means a person who is narrow,
Right.
very deep in understanding in a certain function. So let's say like a finance officer, a sales director, operations director, they're very knowledgeable in their field. But when you become a management team, you need to have broad knowledge. So the leader of that business needs to help people to develop from becoming an I individual to becoming a T.
T would be?
T meaning wide at the top. So the head, the knowledge base and all that, he has a wide knowledge. He understands economy, economics, leadership, strategy, people, P&L of companies, and different, wider perspective in order to further develop to become, a real leader in the business. So this is a missing piece.
Right. I see what you mean. If I may ask a follow-up question on that, is just from the perspective of just not just leaders but also teams and A, B, and C players in both categories. How impactful do you feel coaching and mentoring and training are in sort of graduating them to a rung above their current level? And is it just innate in specific people, or do you, in your experience, have you found that everybody in their own way can be coached and mentored and trained into being a better performer?
I think from my personal perspective, strong leaders are born to be.
I see.
Rather than trained to be, in essence. Okay, so people have a certain characteristic
Right.
where they are strong leaders, having strong leadership. I think that's somehow built into the DNA. However, I think people can develop subject to the level of IQ. People who have a high IQ can be coached, can be trained because they will learn.
Right.
They will understand, they will pick up, and then they will develop. However, it's all subject to the internal motivation.
Okay.
Some people do not have an ambition to become the number one in the business, meaning that the managing director, the CEO. Some people are perfectly happy by being mid-level management until they retire. So I think it's very much related to personal ambition. But I think the higher the level of IQ, the more trainable, the more people can develop further.
Understood. So if I understand correctly, so there's an element of just innate ability and innate sort of being born a leader, born a high performer, but those individuals are then also great candidates for coaching and mentoring.
Yes.
and training.
Yes.
Okay, understood. Makes sense. Now, speaking of all the just leadership as individuals and as teams and organizations, we live in a world where just practicing alone isn't isn't sufficient, especially from a marketing perspective, and then kind of drawing you into my world, is how important do you feel as an individual leader and as an organization, just putting your thought leadership out there and does that, in your opinion, make a difference in the not just marketing, but how a leader or a team is perceived in the eyes of important stakeholders, for example?
I think it's crucial, because I think if we look at individuals, we should consider ourselves as brands.
Right.
So the question is, what's your brand value proposition? Or what do people think of you as in terms of as a brand?
Right.
So I think it's a choice we need to make. What kind of a perception we want others to view us. So I've chosen that I'd like to be viewed as a thought leader.
Right.
And then to do that, I need to communicate about thought leadership, and this is what I've recently started off in LinkedIn,
right,
to communicate different perspectives on thought leadership, on terms of organization, in terms of teams, and in terms of how to get more performance from the business. So I think it's a choice we need to make. Mm-hmm. What's your personal brand? And then it's all about communicating that to potential customers,
right,
to stakeholders, because people reach a perception if you're silent.
True.
But that perception may not be the one that we wish them to view you as. So I think it's crucial to communicate and choose the right communication avenue, timings, and the way of communication as well. That's crucial.
It makes a lot of sense, and I could not agree with that more. As somebody who follows you on LinkedIn, I see that a lot of the things that you talked about today and off camera during our last conversation, you also talk about on LinkedIn. So there's kind of a consistency, if I may use that word, in your messaging and the topics that you were talking about in one-to-one conversations, as well as to the public on LinkedIn as well. So I see what you mean, just purely observing the things that you talk about as well.
Thanks for mentioning that. I think this is crucial. You hit the nail on the head. Consistency. Mm-hmm. If you want people to trust you in a certain, you have to choose what you want to be. Okay, and then once you choose what you want to be, you have to be very consistent with that. Okay, if you look at Singapore Airlines, Singapore Airlines is an airline where people have a high level of trust, a high level of comfort, and view this as high quality.
Right.
I read the book on Singapore Airlines, and what I learned from that is that Singapore Airlines uses a very high element of consistency.
I see.
It has to be completely consistent. Mm-hmm. The insides of the airlines have to be exactly the same. The service on every flight should be exactly the same. Okay, and that gives trust. Okay, so consistency is crucial in all the touch points of communication, to be very consistent. For instance, like choosing a particular topic, and then you would become the so-called expert, right, of that topic, and then people will trust you in that topic.
Yeah, consistency leads to trust. When you put it like that, it makes complete sense, yeah, and it also makes sense for somebody's personal brand as well. So thanks for highlighting that. Now, I'm kind of switching topics here, but talking about the country you and I call home. You've spent a lot of time here. You mentioned you were born here, so you've spent a considerable amount of time, both not just at work, but outside of work in Thailand. So, in your experience, what are the pros and cons, or opportunities and challenges that you see in the Thai business landscape today? Because there's obviously the geological location and things like that, but also the political climate and just the overall state of the economy in the region as well. So from that perspective, how do you see everybody from large corporates to small, medium businesses placed if they are using Thailand as a home base or a regional hub?
From Thailand, from a geographic point of view, has a very unique location. It's in more or less Central and Southeast Asia, right, and a kind of a sizable population, between the 65, 70 million. So this is, a pretty good domestic market, centrally located, and can, operate as like a platform within Southeast Asia. So I think this is one. Thailand is very strong in certain industries, like we look at tourism or agriculture, so very strong. So these are, shall we say, the baseline, the forte, going forward. I think Thailand does need to make a decision in terms of what industries we want to do in the future and focus on in the future, because our labor costs are increasing, so we can't always be in, shall we say, low tech, low value proposition product lines. So we need to make a decision. So there are particular industries which I see are growing. From Thailand, I see that. Tourism, I think, has a good opportunity to grow, further develop. There are certain industrial segments which are growing. We see the data centers coming in.
Right.
We see also certain industries coming here, because Thailand does have a good, shall we say, supply chain in certain industries like automotive, or certain supply chains here which are pretty strong. So these are growth areas. But irrespective of all of this, I have a very strong belief that if you have the right leadership characteristics, if you have a strong value proposition, if you have a very sharp strategy, and you have the right team to execute, meaning you have a high portion of A players, some B players, no C players, I think you can grow businesses by taking market share. You can disrupt competition with a good strategy. So I view this that there's always an opportunity to grow, irrespective of whether the GDP is a single digit, negative GDP, or certain industries declining. I have a strong belief that provided you have the right internal structure, the right leader, right strategy, right teams, you can take market share and you can grow.
Makes sense. I mean, it's an interesting perspective, because a lot of guests to whom I pose that question, there's a lot of sort of dependence on, hey, the economy isn't doing well, or the market size is too small, or aging population, or lack of startup infrastructure. So there's a lot of reasons not to succeed. But like you said, success doesn't necessarily entail just the growth of the economy, but it could be just getting a better market share within the pie that you're working with. So, yeah, I think.
And just further is that, channels are shifting. What I mean is that, certain businesses have been reliant on traditional channels. We now see e-commerce growing. In certain segments, e-commerce has a pretty big portion. So the question is, are you taking shares in that, category very well? And the other thing is that what many businesses do is they reach a maturity stage. And the question is, so what's the next S curve?
Right.
What's the next business to do? And certain very sizable companies, what I see in Thailand is that they become the global market leader of a certain category. They've decided to move into another category, which is adjacent. And those new categories are actually now, in one company I know, is actually bigger than their traditional business. So it comes back again to leadership. What I mean is the leader has to identify these opportunities and grow. So I believe there's always an opportunity to grow, provided you have a growth mindset.
Fascinating. Now that is the perfect way to bring us to our last question of the day. You talk about growth mindset and we started the conversation with it, and we're ending the conversation with the fact that leaders and the teams that they build around them make or break any business.
Yes.
So to anybody as a business leader, or as a team around a business leader who might be listening to this, what's your go-to advice, or what's your top three pieces of advice that you would give to people as they navigate their careers and their organizations?
I would say, coming back to the owner or the leader or the C-level of the business, it's, work on your setup, work on your character.
Right.
Potentially you could have two characters, meaning one in the business, egoistical, high ambition, high energy, fast speed, strategic mindset. But at home, you're an introvert where you chill out and your energy comes from being, just reading a book, completely chilled out. So arguably you could have two characteristics. One in the business, play the role.
Right.
As if we were an actor who got got the script for this particular movie. This movie required us to behave this way.
Right.
Okay, so play the role. Okay. Make sure you have a very sharp strategy. Okay, your value proposition is very good, and with that you can take competition on. Hire a really good team. Okay, make sure they are A players. okay, and then retain these A players. Okay, I think these three elements, leadership characteristic, sharp strategy, having the right team, this will enable you to be successful in no matter what endeavor you have.
Awesome. That's a fantastic framework to work with, and it sort of simplifies things when you're sitting with a notebook just trying to plan things. Sort of just playing with these three variables and seeing how you can excel in all three of them. It gives not just myself, but I'm sure people who are listening a good framework to work around. So that brings us to the end of our conversation, Kari. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I hope to have many more conversations like these on camera, off camera, in the events that you go to. So I really, really appreciate taking the time.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk together.
It's a pleasure. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. Thanks again to Kun Inc. and her team at No More. I'll head out and maybe steal a couple of boxes from Kari. And if you like the episode, make sure to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thank you. Bye-bye.